Hello, hello. Can anybody see me? Can anybody hear me? Hopefully this works. I'm right on here streaming live from Puerto Morelos. Let's see if this works. Actually, I've got two people online. It looks like it's working. Shout out if you can hear me. Give me a shout out if you can hear me because I had some issues the last time. Shout out. Okay, it looks like I'm live. Coming to you guys from Puerto Morelos, Mexico. Let me check here on my YouTube. Let me see if I can see myself here live. I'm coming here from Puerto Morelos, celebrating Mexican Independence Day. Shout out if you guys can hear me. I've got the chat up. Let's see if you guys. I'm streaming here. All right, I got 5 people here. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Let's see if I'm going on my channel. See if I can. I'm streaming from my iPad. I apologize. It's not as fancy as my normal setup. But yeah, but it looks like. All right. So hold on. Let me. I'm resetting. Actually, I was in Cozumel, but we came over to Puerto Morelos because tomorrow we're heading back to Monterrey. So if you all know about Cozumel and Cancun and Playa del Carmen, basically Cozumel is an island. And what we normally end up having to do is that we normally end up having to stay the night before in the Playa del Carmen side. Puerto Morelos is a little town between Cancun and Playa del Carmen. We're staying at an all-inclusive resort here. As you can see, here's my view out the back. We're not on the beach side. We're actually on the wooded side. Hey, Gringos Are Us. Hey, Big Sis Dula, Lambden. Great to see you guys here. Today we're celebrating, and actually this is the beginning. It's actually officially tomorrow, Mexican Independence Day, so that's why I'm wearing this. And actually it starts today. The celebrations start tonight. And then they actually do the grito at midnight. So it's technically the 16th, but it starts on the 15th. Everybody gathers in the square in Mexico City in different areas of Mexico. So I just thought I'd do a live stream. Of course, I'm here on vacation. Of course, none of this funded with YouTube revenue. None of this funded by GoFundMe campaigns or anything like that. Totally paid for by yours truly. So I figured I'd do you a live stream like I did from Cozumel. This will be a quick one. If you guys want to ask me any questions. Gringos Are Us. We're going to Puerto Morelos in December. We love this place. Actually, one of the reasons why we come here every year to Cozumel. We usually stay in Playa del Carmen the night before we leave, but today we're staying in Puerto Morelos. So it's a beautiful little fishing town. It's grown a lot. Oh wow! Yes, they're going to be in for the grito. Gringos Are Us. They're going to be in Merida in the town square. Most places in Mexico have some type of celebration. Actually, here at the hotel, they're going to have I guess in they call it Centro de Convención across the street, because this whole hotel has 3 different hotels. I mean, it's one hotel, but it's 3 different places. They're going to actually have the grito here at the convention, the center where they do a lot of entertainment. So that's part of the celebration. A lot of people, I've already done a couple of videos that everybody says Cinco de Mayo, and I tell the story about how Cinco de Mayo got confused with Mexican Independence Day. Actually, Mexican Independence Day is on December 16th, not on Cinco de Mayo. And of course, probably most of you guys already know that. So today I figured I'd just do another normal Ask Me Anything About Mexico. I'm gonna start doing this every time that we go on vacation if I can find a good internet connection. Luckily, this hotel had a good internet connection, so I'm able to go ahead and do this live stream. It's not as fancy as my other live streams that I have advanced software, but I'm coming to you straight from my iPad, actually. So, anybody have any questions about moving to Mexico, or even any kind of, you guys just want to, I know that we've got a lot of good little discussions on my Ask Me Anything live streams. If you have any questions, like I said, it's beautiful here. I'll tell you a little bit about, we had a couple of interesting experiences on this vacation. The first experience we had was we got here to Puerto Morelos, and we actually witnessed, there's a lot of people in Puerto Morelos, because it's an island, a lot of cruise ships come to the island, and we were driving down, and hopefully I don't see my chat here. Okay. And hopefully I'm still online, but we were, let me try to, oh shoot, get a little bit more. Okay, we just had gotten here a couple of days after we got here. A lot of people rent scooters, Jeeps to get around town, and yeah, Cozumel. Yes, Cozumel. We were in Cozumel, and basically we were there, and a lot of cruise ships come in, and so a cruise ship came in. But the thing about the cruise ships is, if you're not at port by 5 o'clock, the ship just takes off without you. I mean, literally takes off without you. So we were driving in a taxi back to our hotel room. Everything's really close by, and there was two people that were rushing back to their cruise ship. They had rented a scooter. Literally, were trying to weave in and out of traffic, trying to get back to the cruise ship, the cruise line, and unfortunately, we witnessed right in front of us, they wiped out, and the passenger flew quite a ways and ended up really bad off. So we witnessed that accident. We ended up calling the ambulance from there, and we ended up calling the ambulance. The girl survived, and the other passenger was pretty banged up. We didn't think anything of it after that, and we ended up, my wife ended up, she had these little, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Havaianas. They're from Brazil. Actually, they're flip-flops that you can buy, and originally they're from Brazil. The company's out of Brazil. She got a blister on her between where you're on the flip-flops, where your big toe goes. And we went on a snorkel cruise, and what happened was, when we went on the snorkel cruise, we ended up the snorkel cruise ends up taking you to a place where there's like a sandbar, and you might see some adjustment. The camera kind of self-adjusts, the software that I'm using. So we went on this snorkel cruise, and when we went on the snorkel cruise, we ended up in a sandbar, and my wife's blister filled up with sand. So we had to go to the hospital, and actually 500 pesos later, excellent care. We went to the emergency room, urgent care in the evening, and we ended up running into the people that got into the motorcycle accident a little earlier. Very interesting. I'm probably going to do a video on having to go to the urgent care. Was an excellent service, and it only cost us 500 pesos at the end of the day. I don't know an urgent care you can go to where you end up paying an equivalent of, 500 pesos. Now, let's take our first question here. What steps to obtain temporary Mexican citizenship if my wife can get dual citizenship. Thank you in advance. Okay, Lambden, if your wife can get dual citizenship, it's a really easy process. Actually, I'm married to a dual citizen. That's how I got my permanent residency. But if you want to get residency, first your wife needs to get, or whoever your spouse. I don't want to say wife because Lambden, I don't know if you're male or female, but your spouse. I don't want to make any assumptions, but if your spouse, she needs to get her dual citizenship first. That's a pretty easy process if she has all the paperwork. If you're in the United States or Canada or any other foreign country, you just go to the Mexican consulate. Now, here's the secret to going to the Mexican consulate. You don't make the same appointment at the Mexican consulate that people that are applying for residency make. They have each Mexican consulate has a thing called Mexican Citizenship Services. So what you do is you go to Mexico, and you gotta excuse me because I'm on an iPad Pro and the camera's over here, and I kind of look straight at the iPad, so it looks like I'm looking away, but I have to focus on the camera. But what you do is that I know you're talking about residency, and so what you do is your wife goes and she asks for an appointment for Mexican Citizenship Services. Here's the reason why. First of all, if you get the other kind of appointment, they're going to tell you to go home. But that's for number one. Number two, Mexican citizens are a priority when you go to the consulate. Okay, so like a lot of people that are applying for residency at the Mexican consulate, they have to wait for months. Mexican citizens don't have to wait for months. They have different issues. For example, I need a copy of my passport. I lost my passport. I need a copy of identification documents. Or, for example, your wife who needs to claim her dual citizenship. Now, what you need to do is make sure you check with the consulate what is needed for the dual citizenship. All the names have to match on the birth certificates and everything else. Once your wife does get dual citizenship, what you do is you can start the process two ways. I started the process at the Mexican consulate because I went in blind. I didn't really know how it worked. The first way is to get a appointment at the Mexican consulate. You apply for temporary residency based on the fact that you are married to a Mexican citizen. Now, when I went to the Mexican consulate and I took everything, I took 12 months of bank statements. I was already retired. I took my retirement letter. I took all sorts of stuff, thinking that I needed to show this financial solvency stuff. And when we got there, I presented all my bank statement and they said, first of all, what are you applying for? I said temporary residency because we wanted to bring a car. I've told this story a million times. And then they said, okay, well, I started looking at my financials, and which I qualified all the way up to permanent residency. I had my retirement letter there. And then she said, okay, and why do you want to come? I said, well, I'm married to a Mexican citizen, and, she's from Monterrey, and we want to both move to San Miguel de Allende. And she was like, oh, is your wife here? And I'm like, yeah, she's here. Oh, can you bring her in? And I'm like, yeah, she's in the waiting room, because they'll take you in by yourself. And they asked my wife, do you have your INE with you? With the INE, which is a national identification card for Mexican citizens. In your wife's case, if she doesn't have it yet, she gets it to the consulate, they're going to give her an ID card. It's not quite the INE, but it's an ID card that and her passport, or you can take the passport in. And they said, well, I'm going to qualify you. You're married to a Mexican citizen. I don't even need to look at your financials anymore. And it's easier for me. That's what the consulate lady told me. It's easier for me to get approval. And I said, okay, whatever you need to do. And she says, you sure you don't want permanent residency? I said, no, because we want to bring a car. I explained the whole thing to her. And she's not a problem. And I was in and out of the consulate in 20 minutes with my visa to get my residency, the Conge visa that they talk about. Now, excuse me, here's the thing that I didn't know. And then not only that, I didn't know this, but if you are married to a dual citizen and your wife has all her paperwork all in her passport and everything else, You can actually do that process directly in Mexico. You don't have to go through the consulate, then enter within 180 days, because once you get that little visa foil, you have to enter within 180 days. And then you have 30 days to get the INM office. And then after you make an appointment, and then you go. Now, if you're married to a Mexican citizen, you can go straight to the INM office and you can apply. I would get a facilitator, Landon. It makes things a lot easier. We did it on our own the first time. We made a lot of trips back and forth to the INM office, but a facilitator basically saved us a lot of, every time we went back, we needed another thing and another thing and another thing. The other thing is that I would suggest, if you're going to go to Mexico and you're going to do this in Mexico, make sure your marriage certificate is apostolized. And that makes it official in Mexico. Or what we did, but this is not everybody's scenario. But what we did was we actually registered our marriage. We actually paid an attorney to register our marriage in Mexico. So we actually have a marriage registered here in Mexico. So we actually took that documents to there. The thing you have to be careful about, number one, it needs to be apostolized. Now, if you go to a consulate, you're coming to the U.S. on U.S. soil, and normally they don't require an apostolized, but I'd get it apostolized anyway, because some consulates will require that. But the other thing that's very, very notable that you need to be careful with, when you do your marriage certificate, your wife's name needs to match the name that's on her Mexican documents. Now, for example, my wife, in the United States, it's very normal in the United States, it's very, very normal to change your name when you get married, right? So my wife was already Yamilet Baca instead of De La Fuente. But when she brought it, now here's the thing, when I was in the consulate, she had her INE, she presented her INE, she didn't present her driver's license or anything else like that. And we had our marriage certificate. And so it was one of those things where her name didn't match, but of course she was there with me, and the names were the same. Actually, her name did match because she had changed her name back prior to me. So she had some documentation that she had changed her name. The problem is if, and on the marriage certificate, her maiden name was on the marriage certificate. So you got to make sure that maiden name matches. Here's the thing, sometimes they'll get so picky because here in Mexico, they use both last names, your paternal last name and then your maternal last name. So for example, I would be Ernest Baca Diaz here in Mexico. But in the United States, you don't do that. So a lot of times, for example, if your wife was, I don't know, Maria Gonzalez Palacios, okay, in the United States, her paperwork might just say Maria Gonzalez and not the Palacios. So you have to show some proof that this person is the same person. That's the only hang up that you might have. And that's why I tell people, you might as well do it through the consulate. I know everybody says, you can go straight to INM in Mexico. That's not a problem. If you can come back to the United States, back and forth, and maybe make a couple of trips, because the problem is, if you go to the the Mexican consulate closest to you, and they tell you, oh, you need your marriage certificate apostolized. Well, you go home, you apostolize your marriage certificate, and you come back. And if they say, oh, well, you need now, the names don't match. Or let's say maybe this is your second marriage and your wife still had the name of the person that was married to before. Oh, the names don't, hey, well, Fredo, the names don't match. Oh, okay, so now I got to show how I changed my name or my previous marriage certificate, because you need to show why you changed your name. Normally on the name changes, you can go with Social Security, because that's where you usually change your name first. And you can get your paperwork. but they're very picky about the name. So like if, for example, they send you back and go, your names don't match, you're gonna need this particular paperwork to prove it. Now, if you're in Mexico, it's not as easy. You might have to end up calling relatives. You might not have the recourses to do that. When I was here doing my residency, I was doing it out of Monterrey, which I was 2.5 hours from the border. So if I needed to go back with some paperwork, to get some paperwork and to come back, I could. Now I didn't need to do that, but just keep that stuff in mind. And Pat Vega, ¿Cómo está, hermano? Good to see your best. Giving the real deal, 411. Yeah, I try my best to do it. So maybe that was a long answer, Landon, but it's an easy process. It's not that hard. It's just getting the right paperwork together. That's why I always say hire a facilitator too, because they can tell you what paperwork that particular office. Some offices are more lenient. So they might say, oh yeah, don't worry about apostolizing your marriage certificate. They'll accept the regular marriage certificate here. So a facilitator's gonna know because they do these processes every day. But you don't have to meet any financial solvency requirements. You automatically get your Mexican residency. You don't have to worry about any kind of financial solvency. The only thing you have to make sure is that you know. Oh, Fredo, my wife had the same problem. Last name didn't match the Mexican passport. There in the U.S. consulate in San Miguel de Allende, or the U.S. consulate in San Miguel, can help certifying the discrepancy. Yeah, usually the consulate will help. Actually, even getting documents apostolized and stuff, you might have to go through the consulate. The consulate may be able to help you out there. But like I said, and Wilfredo gave a great tip that I wasn't even aware of. I knew that the consulates give certain services, and they give certain services to U.S. citizens. I know that some of the stuff, such as notarizing stuff like that, you can get done at a U.S. consulate. Well, and thank you, Wilfredo, for bringing that up, that they can help you out there. But like I also said, that's another step that you're going to have to go to the U.S. consulate. Now, if you're already in Mexico, this is the way I need to do it. Well, that's the way you need to do it. Go to the U.S. consulate and have them help you out. But that's why now the only thing now here's the drawback of doing it at the U.S. consulate, at the Mexican consulate in the United States or in Canada or where you're from. Here's the drawback. Number one, you have to get an appointment. And that's not with Mexican Citizenship Services. That's with the visa services. And that might be a couple months out. Then once you get that little foil and you do your little appointment, which isn't going to take more than 5 minutes, they'll put your foil in there. Some consulates, within 20 minutes, you're in and out. The only problem with that, well, that's if you have everything together. The only problem with the consulate is you have to enter within 180 days. And then once you enter, you have to get to the INM office within 30 days. And you can't leave once you're already entering the process. So if you get to INM and they say you need something that the consulate didn't, then once you met with INM or you got an appointment with INM, you're good to go as far as the 30-day. But you can't leave the country, so you can't just come back to the U.S. and do whatever you need to do. So you might have to go to the consulate, like they were saying. So it's really basically up to you. If you hire a good facilitator before you leave, they'll normally, you can send them your documents that you have, and they can check everything, and they'll tell you, yes, the local office will accept this here, or they won't accept it. So just make sure you take everything with you, either way, either to the consulate or to the immigration office. And you're very welcome, Landon. And Gringos Are Us, we always advise to load for bear, even though the hunt is for a squirrel when it comes to the information. Yes, that's true. Actually, Gringos Are Us pointed out a good point. You always want, like a lot of times for temporary residency, you need 6 months of bank statement. Take 12. Look what happened to me. I went in with 12 months of bank statements, 401k, retirement letter, and these guys were, well, wait a second, aren't you married to a Mexican citizen? This is a lot easier. And actually, the consulate officer was like, this is a lot easier for me. Why are you showing me all this stuff? And I said, well, I didn't know. And they were like very appreciative. They still looked over it. And I overloaded them with information. And a lot of times when you overload them, they appreciate that. And then you never know. Like, for example, 6 months of bank statements for, a temporary residency. Now, normally, if you're not of retirement age, and let's say you make permanent residency financial solvency requirement, there have been cases that individuals that don't meet the age requirement, that don't meet the retirement requirement, have been given, the consulate officer might say, oh, I'm looking at 12 months of bank statements, you qualify for permanent. Do you want that? You never know. So go in with as much as you can. The other thing too is I always tell people, go in with your 401k statement. And I know, go in, I know they don't accept cryptocurrency. They don't accept a lot of things, but a lot of times, let's say you're $100 short. And then you say, well, look, I got a 401k here that says I got this much money, even though they wouldn't normally accept it. They're going to have that appreciation. Not saying that they're going to accept it, but a lot of times that's how people have gotten exceptions, or that's how people have gotten, upgraded, if you might say, to first class. Not when I say to first class, I meant upgraded to permanent residency instead of what they were intending to go for. Or that's what happened to me when I went in for temporary residency. They kept on asking me, we don't know why you don't want permanent. And it kind of didn't work out because I never brought my card here. And then I ended up having to wait 2 years, because once you get your temporary, you have to wait 2 years being married to a Mexican resident to get your permanent residency. So, overload with information, always take more. Financial solvency is kind of a tricky thing. They have formulas. We always talk about these amounts per month, amounts in savings accounts, but a lot of times you got to remember that everything is up to the discretion. Now, here's the big thing. There's been a lot of rumors going around, and I've already done several videos, and I'm not going to even touch on it, that you can, as long as you show you're retired, because there's supposedly this law, and I've already gone over it, but there's a little bit to be said about that rumor that's going around. You got to remember that it is up to the discretion of the consulate. I mean, the only thing that's correct about all of this stuff is that it's up to the discretion of the consulate. And now, no consulate's going to give you residency just based on the fact that you're retired. That way, I've already gone over that, and I'm not going to go over it again. But here's the thing. Let's say you're $100 short. They have the actual discretion to say, you know what, you're $100 short, but we're going to approve you. You know what, you're $200 short, but you got this 401k over here. We can see that you're financially solvent and you can afford to live here, or not afford, but and I don't want to use the afford thing, because financial solvency and affording to live here are two different things. So you just got to remember that if you overload with information, sometimes something that may not qualify you, that extra information may give that consulate officer that extra discretion to say, I'm going to approve you. Actually, believe it or not, that same discretion applies to getting approved even if you do qualify. The consulate officer can deny. Actually, believe it or not, Washington, D.C. consulate was very famous for this a couple of years ago. There were several people that were coming on the Facebook groups and said, man, I was showing $6,000 a month in income. I went over there and I applied. My personal opinion is probably they got in a fight with the consulate officer and they were denied, even though they qualified. So just because you qualify doesn't mean that you're going to get approved. It's still up to the discretion of the consulate officer. And the same thing, just because you don't qualify doesn't mean that they can't approve you. Now, where the myth comes in is that you don't have to show anything, or you can show $1,000 a month and you're retired and they're going to just approve you if you're nice to the consulate officer, or if you, in another video, if you if you educate them on the law, which I've already gone over and I'm not going to go over again. But that's the point in overwhelming with information, because if there's for some reason, or maybe you understood that they want $2,500 and you only make $2,400 or $2,300, or maybe they changed overnight or the exchange rate changed and now they're saying, oh no, you need $2,700. And you walk in there and you're like, well, but yesterday, well, it's $2,700. But if you show them extra paperwork, that shows your eagerness to want to come in, your eagerness to want to be here in Mexico, and actually showing that you're going the extra mile. And a lot of times, and I can tell you this from a U.S. diplomatic standpoint, I never worked in the consular section where we were giving out visas when I was in Brazil, but I can tell you that most people that got an attitude with the consular officer didn't get their visa approved. And I know a lot of people that used to even, actually within the government that I used to deal with, like, hey, I had a problem at the embassy. They didn't want to approve me. Can you help me out? And I was like, I can't help you out. I don't work in that section. And I can tell you that there was people that went in there very enthusiastic, just had a great conversation with the consulate officer. And I even had consulate officers tell me, yeah, this guy didn't, or this girl didn't quite qualify. Was right there on the edge, and I had to make a decision. And you know what? They were such a good people, and we had such a good time talking. We had such a good conversation. I approved it. So that is a perfect example. I mean, I'm talking about U.S. consulate people giving out visas. It's the same in Mexico for giving out residency visas. And gringos have never forget to take your smile. The most important thing you can take to the consulate. Exactly. Like I was telling you the example in the U.S. Consulate example that I was giving. Actually, I wasn't even the consulate. I was at the embassy. I was actually out of the embassy there in Brazil. So it's good attitude. Don't get in a bad attitude. Don't go there entitled that you're going to get it just because you qualify, because a bad attitude can also go the wrong way. That's very important. Take your smile with you. Take your enthusiasm. Many times you'll be asked, why do you want to move to Mexico? Tell them the truth, because you want to be in Mexico. I mean, it's not a trick question. I think a lot of it has to do with just wanting to see how serious you are about wanting to move. So, any other questions? Comments before I get to the party? Because I'm ready to celebrate Mexican Independence Day tomorrow. Actually, a little history about Mexican Independence Day. If you guys didn't know, I'm talking because I'm not getting any questions yet. But a little bit of history is that on September 16th, well, actually September 15th, well, depending on how you look at it, at midnight. So it's September 16th. In Hidalgo, which is close to San Miguel de Allende, there was a little church, and a priest, and actually the town is named after him, Hidalgo. Hidalgo came out and declared Mexico's independence from Spain. And he shouted it out. Actually, we went to the actual church, and there's a little thing on the church where he actually stood, and he actually declared their independence from Spain. So that's what they celebrate today. And they come out, the president actually comes out the president comes out in Mexico City. He comes out about 11 o'clock, he does a speech, and then they say sometimes at 11 o'clock he does the grito. He actually iterates, or in most other municipalities, just like in Gujarat are saying they're gonna go to Merida, they will actually, and what you'll see, a lot of people in the streets on the 16th will be like, Viva Mexico, Viva Mexico, Viva Mexico. And it's also known as the grito. And everybody does the grito in conjunction with the president. And it officially becomes Mexican Independence Day. It's also a holiday here in Mexico. Let me see what else we have here. Don't slam the U.S. Talk about Mexico instead. That's another good question. That's another good one. Don't say I want to leave the U.S. because U.S. stinks and all that stuff. The Mexican consulate people don't like to hear that. I can tell you that for sure. I've dealt with a lot of Mexican diplomats in my career, either working And it says here, David Terrace, Ernie, can I qualify for permanent temporary with just my IRA and 401k, no Social Security or pension, but IRA approximately 1 million? Okay, David, the IRA and the 401k is kind of a tricky thing. Usually the IRA and the 401k, they will consider it, but like, let's say for example, you're 30 years old and you have 1 million in your 401k, they're gonna say, well, you're not retired yet, so you don't have access to that money. It's a 401k. You can't draw to your 50 something or 60 or 62, or you can't get your pension, or you can't get your Social Security to your 62. Now, if that's your case, then they're not going to consider a 401k. Actually, they'll even say 401ks or IRAs are not considered savings account. What they will require is something in a savings account. The reason why they require it in a savings account is because it needs to be, soluble. It needs to be a soluble asset. For example, 401k, you can't touch it without a penalty. Now, here's the thing with the 401k. Now, let's say you're 60 years old and you're drawing on your 401k. That's your source of income. Or you meet the retirement age, which I believe in Mexico is 60, and you have a 401k. Then you can actually use your 401k as proof of financial solvency. I hope that clears that up. You're age 60, David, you should be able to, if you show them that the 401k is your source of income, basically. This is my 401k. I can touch it now that I'm 60 years old. I believe 60, I think 401, they changed the laws. I didn't, here's the thing. Because I retired at 52, I had a 401k, but they had a special exemption for federal law enforcement. So I could draw from my 401k way before, but I think it's 57 or 58 that you can draw. So now is that what you can do now is that you can actually say, I'm 60 years old, I qualify to draw from my IRA, I qualify to drive. And actually on a 401k, sometimes you have to take a mandatory. I don't know when it is that you have to take a mandatory, but when you're taking mandatory distributions, that will qualify you because that's your source of income. But if you have that 401k just sitting there and you're still working, they're going to look at your work first. So Lambden is 59.5, I believe. Yeah, someone was telling me it was 58, and I remember it was 58 or 57. It was 58 or 59. And I remember my exemption, 59.5. Yeah, my exemption from that 59.5 was because we had mandatory retirement at 57. So the argument was they actually passed a special law for federal law enforcement agents and officers that were on the federal law enforcement retirement system, is that, and actually I even get supplements for Social Security. It's a long story, but because I can't draw Social Security, I get a supplement which is equal to like 75% of what I'd get at 62. And the other thing is I could draw from my 401k. That drawing from the 401k didn't become a law until later on, because a lot of guys were saying, this is not fair. I retire at 57, or let's say I retire at 52, and I can't touch my 401k till I'm 59, and then you're telling me that's supposed to be my retirement income? So I think in 2000, it was in the mid 2000s, they actually passed a law for federal law enforcement. So I don't know the actual age because when I retired, I automatically had access to my 401k and distributions automatically. Yes, not soluble, liquid asset. Thank you, Matt. Actually, believe it or not, I sometimes off the top of my head, sometimes I think it's the radiation treatment I did. I can't, it's like, it's on the top of my head. It's a liquid asset. Your actual 401k becomes a liquid asset whenever you retire. And if your retirement agent can show it's a liquid asset, then basically that's what will qualify you for permanent residency. And actually your age, I think you mentioned you were 60, David. that should qualify you for permanent residency because you're retired. You won't have to show a pension letter because you're a retirement age. And that's how they see it. Now, and here's the thing for people like me who retired at 52. Some consulates won't accept a retirement letter. They actually will say, well, come back when you're 60 or apply for temporary residency. Some consulates are really, really, really strict on you have to be 60 years old. You have to show that you're 60 years old to get the benefit of permanent residency or showing you're retired per se. In that law, under the immigration law, that says that one of the ways to qualify for permanent residency is being retired and showing economic solvency. So you should be good, David, as far as both your 401k showing that it's a liquid asset, and also you're already of age to show that you're retired. So you should be good, and you should be able to show that you have enough asset to, and actually just make sure. Here's the other thing that you might run into. Some 401k statements are quarterly, and I've heard some people having issues with coming in with 4 statements and saying, here's my 401k statement. And they're like, well, you need 12. Well, but it's only every quarter. We only issue 4 a year. And they'll say, but you need 12. Take as many 401k statements as you can for the last couple of years. That'll help you a lot, David, because sometimes they don't see quarterly statements. And the other thing you want to make sure is that they're certified by your brokerage firm or whatever, that their actual statement. What I would do is, because they used to usually say take your last 12 bank statements, for some reason the consulates won't take, but this is a year's worth of, but it's only 4 statements, and for some reason they want 12. So take as many as you can. That's another example of what Gringos R Us were saying. Overwhelm them with information. The more you take, your IRA, your 401k, whatever you have, whatever you're making now, if you have a job, and even if they say, well, you're retired, how come you still have a job? Well, because I'm supplementing my income with my retirement income. That's all you have to tell them. Any other questions? We're going on 42 minutes. I usually hold this to an hour. I'm sorry the conditions aren't as beautiful as Cabo because I couldn't get a setup there in the room that we're staying here. I did post some pictures on Facebook of the view from the rooftop. I'm gonna head to the rooftop bar after this. Actually, you can see the rooftop bar behind me. Let me see if I can, if you look right, let me see if I can put it right. There's where the rooftop bar is. I'm gonna be there in a couple of, right after this. And I really appreciate everybody for coming by. And then it says here, as a temp or permanent resident, can we legally get a gun in Mexico? Actually, that's a good question. OJ Slayer. I'm gonna give you the simple answer, and I'm gonna give you the complicated answer. The simple answer is yes. The complicated answer, the simple answer is yes, but you probably won't. And the complicated answer is yes, but there's a whole process you have to go through. As a resident, you can own a firearm. The gun laws here in Mexico are very, 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 very strict. Actually, there's only one gun store in all of Mexico. Literally, one place that you can buy a gun. Also, there's restrictions on what you can own. I think a .38 pistol is the highest caliber you can own. There are some exceptions for people that belong to gun clubs. There's this gun club thing here that if you are doing sporting, you can get some types of special permissions. But any kind of semi-automatic weapon, you're not gonna, and you can't bring it in from another country. It has to be registered, purchased at this one gun store in Mexico City. That's after going through the whole process with the military, Sedena. Sedena is run by the military. It's actually the military, and they're the ones that actually approve permits. The approval rate for permits for firearms here in Mexico is very, very, very low. So I guess the answer is yes, but maybe the answer is yes, but don't count on it. There are individuals, there's like facilitators, not in the expat community. Usually they're lawyers that specialize. There's a lot of people that here that, for example, hold security jobs, or there's a lot of individuals here that, you know, they have businesses and they have a lot of money, they handle money, those types of things, and they want to get a permit for a firearm. The other thing with the firearm is there's a lot, you can only have it in your house. And it pretty much, here's the thing is, if you use it, back in the old days, there are self-defense laws now, but back in the old days, if you had to use it, defend yourself, you're pretty much already charged for murder right away. Now there are self-defense laws in a lot of the states that protect you from that. Of course, hey, someone was coming to my house and I shot them, and I defended myself. Actually, there was even been cases where, believe it or not, cartel members came to, I don't know, kidnap somebody, and they took the gun away from the cartel member and they shot the cartel member, and the next thing they know, they're the ones being charged with murder. Now there's actual self-defense laws here in Mexico that protect you against that, but you can only have it at your house. And then if you belong to this gun club type of thing, normally these gun clubs have these lawyers that'll do this for you and facilitate it. But if you have a gun club, you can transport the firearm to the gun club and shoot and buy rounds there and stuff like that, and target practice, and then take it back to your house. So the gun laws are very, 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 very strict here. The approval rate, literally, you know, I've even asked, and they were telling me go through a qualified attorney that does that, kind of like a facilitator that has contacts within Sedena that can help you kind of, I guess, navigate the process. So, you know, that's one thing that, and I apologize for the light coming in and off, because I got the camera automatically adjusts, and then, so that's your answer. Guns here, it's not like the States where you just go out and buy a gun. And I guess from what I see, even it's getting more liberal in the United States as far as, I mean, not liberal in the sense of carrying a gun. There's been some court decisions that might even get rid of gun permits altogether. So it's not like that here. You have to get it registered, you have to own it. And also, don't ever try to bring a firearm here from the United States. If they ever find it on you, you ever get stopped, if you ever have a firearm in your car, it's almost a life sentence in prison. I'm not kidding you. We've even had law enforcement officers that had forgot. Actually, there was one in Cancun that came here to Cancun. He was used to flying with his firearm. He even checked it in with the airlines. The airlines doesn't have a problem. I don't know why the airline didn't tell him you can't bring a gun into Mexico, but he even checked it into his luggage. They went searching his luggage. They found a gun, and the police officer got arrested. I don't know whatever happened to that case. I don't know if the U.S. ever intervened, but he literally ended up in jail. And then the sentences for gun violations here are outrageous. And I know everybody's going to tell me, well, the cartels, they walk around everywhere with their guns showing, and they don't pay. They walk around with impunity. Well, the problem is that's a totally different story. But for the average citizen here, owning a gun is a very difficult process. And it has to be approved by Sedena. And I think even amongst Mexican citizens, the approval rate is like 5% of all the applications they receive. So it is possible. It is possible, but it's not exactly. It's possible, but it's not probable. I'm not very good at thinking off the cuff sometimes, but that's basically the bottom line. OJ Slater. I hope that answered your question. Any more questions? We're going on 50 minutes. I mean, if there's no more questions, I'll, I kind of want to get up to the bar up there. But I'm here to answer anything else that you wanna ask. As far as what I have planned, tomorrow I'm heading home. We're not gonna have any stream on Sunday. No live stream on Sunday. We are going because I'm gonna be still in Monterrey recuperating from my vacation, because sometimes you have to actually recuperate. And I'm working on the house video. Actually, on the house video, I'm gonna make it in 2 parts, because I actually did a lot of drone filming footage when it was going up. And we have these 3 stages here in Mexico of construction. They call it obra negra, obra gris, and then when they entregar, when they give it to you. And we're almost at the point where they're gonna hand it over to us. And but I actually did a walkthrough of the house when it was in what we call obra gris. Obra gris is when we had the walls up, the roof on, and a couple of things were there. The walls had already been plastered. They were working on the house. I did a walkthrough of what was gonna be where. And then, so I'm gonna do that video first, along with the drone shots of them putting the roof on, drone shots of the property by itself, maybe drone shots. I think I have some drone shots of the foundation. I'm gonna do that, and then I'll do another video with the finished product. It's almost finished, but pretty much it is finished. OJ says, it sounds extremely complicated. Thanks for an answer, Ernie. Yeah, it is very complicated. Go drink a beer. That's what I'm gonna do. Actually, mezcal. I love mezcal. Do enjoy the rooftop. Cheers. Thank you, sir. Have fun. Thank you guys. And actually, thank you guys for supporting me on these live streams. I don't get enough. When I do my videos, I get enough to say, don't forget to subscribe and thank you very much. And I don't get around to my comments as much as I'd like to sometimes, because I'm retired. We were just discussing this today, actually. We were discussing it with somebody down here in the resort. And a lot of, when we were talking about retired, a lot of people think, yeah, you're retired, you don't do anything. And it's like, no, I've been building a house for the last year. I'm busy. YouTube is not my full-time job. And so I can't give 100% of my time to it. But I give what I can. Even on my free consultations, I do my free consultations, but I only do it 1 day a week. It's not like I have my whole schedule open. That's why they're free. By the way, there's no catch, but the only catch is that, it's convenient with my time and on my schedule, but I have no problem in meeting with people and helping them out via Zoom and doing free consultations. So, a lot of times I don't get around to being able, and I love to get to everybody's comment, even when you give me encouragement. Those are the things that keep me going. I really appreciate it, and sometimes I don't get that chance to just say, hey, thanks. And I at the beginning, I had some time to be, thanks for your support and everything else. But, now I have a chance on these live streams, and I'm going to be doing them more often. Now I have a chance to actually say thank you to all of y'all. What makes our community, and I've already said this several times, I'm trying to build a community here. I have no interest in this other than trying to build a community where we help each other out all the time. If I don't have the answer, somebody just actually help me out right now, because I did. Oh, your acids are soluble. No, I think you meant liquid. See, you helped me out. I'm not an expert, or sometimes I'm not all there. And we help each other out. That's the point I'm trying to make. And if it comes to my Facebook group, I try to keep the drama out of it. I delete comments. I even keep the drama out of my YouTube. Yes, I will delete comments. Not because you don't agree with me, like a lot of other people do, but because They're either insults. Actually, I had a very long time supporter of my channel, viewer of my channel, that decided to voice their opinion and start insulting other individuals, and I had to ban that person from my channel. It was very hard to do because they were a supporter of my channel, but I don't put up with insults. I don't put up with political comments because, like I said, we're all human beings, and whatever side of the fence you come from, it doesn't matter. Whether you're this or that, or pro this or anti this, or pro that, or anti, I don't care. We need just to help each other out because we all have one thing in common. The one thing we have in common is we all want to move to Mexico for whatever reason. So we need to help each other out, no matter what side of the fence you're from. So that I don't deal with political issues. The only political issues I deal with are the ones that are going to affect you, and maybe most of them are Mexican political issues that maybe Mexico's having with the United States or whatever that may affect your coming here to Mexico. But I don't. Other than that, like I said, thank you so much for your support. And anytime I go on vacation, I'm going to try to take you with me every single time. Don't know when the next one will be, but I'll be doing a live stream from that location. Did one from Cabo. It came out successful. This time, the software actually worked. The last time I had to delete the stream and then restart the stream. I had a little bit of a problem. And then also I was a little bit late because I didn't understand the time change. I was totally out of it and thinking that we were 2 hours ahead instead of 2 hours behind. So I came on kind of late. But thank you all. And we just hit almost an hour, 56 minutes. Thank you all for your support. Go out and celebrate Mexican Independence Day. Viva Mexico! Okay, I'm back. Apparently the live stream did not end. So I'm going to try to end it here. For those of you who came on late, sorry about that, but we're here at the festivities. Do you wish to end your live stream? I had some technical difficulties. I know some of you are still watching. I'm trying to end the stream. I don't know why it's not ending.